Hi and welcome to my channel. Today I will be making two different sizes of beautiful flocked woodlands trees using trees that I got at the Dollar Tree. I will be using one 4-foot tree and 3 of their tabletop trees. I also got these pieces of wood. These are a 1 by 6 by 8 and I got them at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using them along with a piece of dowel that I already had on hand for the bases of my skinny tree. And then the other tree, I had a little bit of trouble getting the base, the plastic base off of it, so I went ahead and just glued that onto the base and drove a couple of screws through it. So the first thing I'm doing is I pre-drilled a hole in my dowel and through the center of my wood. And then I drilled my screw through just enough to where I could line up my holes, and now I am putting the screw in. I'm using drywall screws, and these are great because this wood is soft and so they countersunk without me having to do anything special. Once I have this done, I took a piece of 180 grit sandpaper and I just sanded my wood down around the edges just to get it cleaned up and smoothed out. And this is the plastic base that I was talking about that I could not get off of the 4-foot tree. Now I'm going to be mixing some nutmeg paint with a little bit of black just to darken it up some, and that's what I'll be painting both of my bases with. I did go in and put 2 coats on without letting them dry in between, and it covered nicely. Once those are painted and dried, then it's time to start putting our trees together. So with this, I first used the hot glue and the construction adhesive, but for some reason it didn't want to stick very well, so that's when I decided to go back and reinforce it, just driving an angled screw into each side down into the wood, and now it is super sturdy. Now it's time to start putting our small tabletop trees together. Now the bases on these, they just pop off. They're not glued on. And I'm going to do this to all 3 of my trees. And then I am going to be using some heavy-duty zip ties to tie the trees together. And this really worked out great. I didn't have to use any glue or anything like that. As you can see, I was having a little trouble. I put it on backwards, and so it was slipping on me. And it took me a second to realize what was going on. And you just want to make sure that these are tightened down really well. And I did use 3 zip ties to attach each tree. Once I have those put together, I am going to be choosing a drill bit that is around the same size as the tree, and even just a tad smaller. And I'll be drilling a hole in the dowel, and so I can stick the tree right down in it. Now when I did this, I went really slow because I wanted to make sure that I was drilling as straight as possible. And the bottom of the tree had a little bit of almost like a silk string wrapped around it, and it prevented it from going into the wood. So I am just unwinding some of that string and cutting it off, and then the tree fits nicely into that hole. And I didn't have to put any type of glue or anything in there. It was so snug it's not coming out. And this is what I have so far with my 3 trees zip tied together and inserted into the wooden base. So the next step is to take the branches, and instead of spreading the branches out like you would on a regular tree, you're going to fold them down, and then you're going to give them a little curve at the end, so the end of them curve upward just a little bit. And you're going to do this with every single branch all the way up to the top. And this is what gives it that really cute woodlands tree shape. And then the very tip of the tree, I left standing straight up. So once I had this done, I took a couple of branches from the larger 4-foot tree and cut them off so I could use these pieces to wrap around the middle of my tree where my zip ties are so that you won't be able to see them. Once that's done, I took it outside to give it just a light coat of white spray paint, and as you can see, it was so windy that day. I lost half my spray paint in the wind. But I gave it a good coat. I don't know if you noticed that the bottom tree that I used on that was a different color than the rest of them, and I didn't know that when I bought them, but the white spray paint took care of that completely. Now this is the 4-foot tree, and I am just doing the exact same process with that. And then I'm going in and I'm painting that green base in the brown so it matches the wood. And then I just took a couple of medium-sized snow cones and gave them a little bit of white paint for a snowy effect. Now I'm going to be mixing up some DIY flock. And this is a little bit different than in the past when I've made flock. This one is baking soda, Elmer's glue, white paint, and I'm incorporating some shaving cream. And the reason I'm doing that is because it makes the flock go a lot further, because I knew I was going to need quite a bit of flocking to do 2 of these trees. And the reason that I add the white paint is because the glue will yellow over time, and I don't want that to happen, so the white paint will prevent it from doing that. And I'm just adding these ingredients together and stirring them up until I get a fairly thick consistency that I feel like is not going to run off the tree once I apply it. And once I do that, I'm just using my fingers to apply this, starting at the top of the tree, and I am adding the flock to every single branch. And I'm doing a little bit heavier flock towards the end of the branches, where a natural tree that's outside in the snow would get a bigger buildup of the snow. And this gives it just a little bit more of a realistic look. And this is what I have once I've finished with the flock. Now with the smaller tree, I went in and I added some artificial snow that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. And it is mainly white, but it has some iridescent pieces in it. Once I was finished, it looks pretty, but I think if it didn't have those iridescent pieces in it, it would look a lot better. So once I got to the second tree, I decided not to add this artificial snow. But here I'm just using a clear Elmer's glue and brushing it on the tips of my branches and then sprinkling my snow on. Now the pine cones, I am going to be gluing them directly to the base, and this is just going to give it an extra little touch to make it feel more like the outdoors and a little bit more authentic. I'm standing one up and then I'm laying one down. And these are the finished trees. They turned out so amazing. I may leave them up year round, we will see, but at least all winter season. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that you decide to make these trees. And leave a comment below and let me know what you think of this project. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you next time.